There we go.
Hey, welcome to Tea Time with Amie and Bev.
Good morning.
What's up? What's up?
The heater's blowing me around a little bit. We actually have the heater on and it's April. I mean, it's not, I guess, too uncommon, but had to pop it on for a couple minutes this morning.
Yeah. Here's the thing is every year in April, it gets warm and then we have a cold spell and then it gets hot. And like we are right now in the 60s today, by the end of the week, we're supposed to be in the 90s.
Oh, well, there we go.
There you go. Like every year, my mother-in-law specifically, she's like, "Oh, it's warming up. It's warming up." I'm like, "Yeah, for a few days, so we're gonna have a cold spell." Here we are.
Here we are. It's good rain though.
It's good
rain.
Definitely needed, of course, because of the fires up in the mountains. So it's praying.
They got snow too. Yeah, they got snow as well.
Did they really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when I think we actually talked about this last week, when something dies, there's rebirth. There's got to be an end to something for something new to grow. And I didn't know this, or I probably knew it, but didn't really internalize it. I internalized more stuff as an adult than I did when I was younger. So an adult meaning since I've been over 40. So one of the facts is that pine cones, when there's fires, it actually helps open the pine cones so the seeds can fall to the ground. And then that's awesome. Rebirth.
Yeah.
And when I heard that, I was like, oh, so now when there's a fire, and I know like around the pine trees like that, I'm like, oh, so there's death to the old so new can grow. And so, I mean, it's okay.
It is.
There were no to my knowledge, there were no structural fires, meaning all the homes and the businesses in that area are okay. And so it's just another way of looking at the beginnings of a new.
And for me, it helps with prayer too, because it's like when I saw the smoke, because we saw it Sunday, and it was a small area. And it's like with the wind that was blowing so bad, it got so big. And it's like, I just, a lot of times you can be a witness to something like that, I feel like, and just look at it and like, oh my God. And you start worrying about all the animals and stuff. And it's like, but what about prayer? What about our thoughts and how much our intentions and our, how we're such master creators. We don't have control over everything. We don't have control over other people's will, but we do have like so much that can help guide the animals into the right direction away from the fire, keep them all safe, keep the structures safe. As you said, as far as I know, the only thing that burned was a shed. That was the only structure I had heard that had burned, which is pretty freaking awesome if you saw the pictures of the that they were showing up around there, and it was pretty incredible. So it's like that means that all those cabins and stuff are still all standing, which is crazy. Crazy awesome. But like you said, to me, it's a rebirth. It's a death of the old, which is only a creation of a new, always. That's just like when you're reading your cards, like your tarot cards or your angel cards, and you see an ending on something. Endings only mean beginnings. That's it. Death only means a renewal, a rebirth. That's all it means. And people get so afraid of death and everything else, but it's like you just said, it's a necessity. Maybe they needed new healthy trees coming in. Maybe those trees were having a struggle. Now it's creating a good environment for new seeds.
Yes. And I think this is the third week we've talked about this. And so apparently it's important for people to hear it. And here's what they say. They say we need to hear something like 7 times before we act upon it. So we're in week 3, my friends, and we're going to say it again. In order to make a change, in order to have the life you desire, there's something that has to die within you. There's got to be a change, meaning it doesn't mean you're going to die, or don't go set yourself on fire. Let's be real. and let's have some common sense. But you do have to make a change within yourself. And that entails your beliefs, your habits, your patterns, the way you talk, the way you think, the way you feel. Like there's got to be some shift, and it could just be in one category that I just mentioned that you start with. Because once you start with one and good at making changes with it, then it's going to flow into the other topics, the other categories, automatically. Because once you make a shift and you feel better, then you'll recognize how important it is to make the shift in the other areas. And again, it's not to take all of it at once and work on it. At least start with one, just one category, one topic of your life, and start shifting that.
I agree. Because it can get overwhelming. You start thinking about all the things that you could change in yourself. Or, I mean, how many of us have read something and like, oh, that's a great idea, and never do anything more with it? So it's just incorporating one thing, because you do start noticing a difference. And maybe if initially you don't notice the differences because of what you did, you just all of a sudden notice a change. You know, I listened to a person recently talking about triggers and how triggers are such a blessing, which we've talked about before, because they really are. But she's saying the triggers are a distraction from the actual wounds. It's like trying to take you away from this wound area. When really if you look at the trigger and then be like, okay, what's the wound? Where is this? What wound is this coming from? And then, you know, asking more information. And I've started doing some of this stuff. Like as soon as I catch my thoughts on something like this, or I notice, because I didn't realize until I started really paying attention this last couple of days. And I haven't been around a lot of people. I've just been home. So for the last, today will be the 4th day. So it's been interesting, because I've noticed so many little things will trigger me, just little things. And it's nice that I'm in this place where I can recognize it, because as soon as the slight little trigger happens, I'm aware of it. And then I'm like asking, where is this wound? And maybe I'm not always getting the answer where the wound was or why it was there, but I feel relief afterwards. Then I'm just feeling into that emotion and not attaching anything, not feeling like oh God, like bringing it all the way back to that time that whatever happened. I just feel the actual emotion, and it just disappears. It just goes away. So it makes it easier, but it's the practice is, it's not always, I don't feel like, for me, it's not always easy to be in that space of paying attention, because we put so much of our energy outside of ourselves when we're around other people or whatever. We're just in different environments. I feel like I can do those things, but this has given me the opportunity to start learning that and start recognizing it as soon as it happens, when someone's talking or when I experience something on the road or whatever the situation is. But it's that right there is helping. It's giving me relief.
Yep. And I've shared this before, and a lot of times, it's not always, but a lot of times I'll just laugh at myself and go, isn't that interesting how I'm showing up right now when I'm getting triggered?
Yeah.
So and please know, I say this over and over and over, Bev and I are still practicing this ourselves. And so, yes, we do get triggered. Yes, things set us off in ways that of old behavior, but it's not as intense as it used to be. So as more you practice it, the better you get at catching, oh, I just got triggered. Oh, look at how I'm showing up in this situation. Or, wow, her attitude or her tone of voice or her facial expressions really set me off, right? We still may get triggered in certain ways, but we're in a space with ourselves that we catch. We're able to step into the healing part much more quickly now than we have ever been able to before. And so in those moments, I mean, there are some things that still really get my attention, that I really still have some work and healing to do around. But a lot of situations, if I have that angst within me about something that has happened, I go, oh, wow, I just felt that. Interesting that my body's showing up this way, or it's interesting that those thoughts popped in, or it's interesting that I said that. why did I, you're right, you question, why did I even say that? That was not even nice. And I have to go and sit with myself, kind of put myself in a timeout and go, okay, let's reassess. How could I have shown up better? How could I have said that better? How could I have had less judgmental thoughts? How could I have received the words that were said in a different way that it didn't set me off? Right. So it's again, it's depending, and that's mindset work, is that must change within yourself. Mindset is, if you want to start with anything, you start with your mindset in shifting that. And because with the practice that Bev and I have had for so many years, is that we are very willing to be in a learning mode, that we are ready and willing to learn about ourselves, so that we can release or heal, recognize those things that are causing that discord within ourselves. And that's kind of the pretty much the difference between us and other people. We're very willing to learn how we're operating, what's triggering us, what's it going to take to shift, what's it going to take to heal this, what's it going to take to see this differently. And somebody who is in the victim mindset is going to only focus on the drama, the anger, the negative emotions, the staying in that space, the blame. They did this to me. And it's just complete victim mentality. And then there's no room to improve. When you're in victim mentality, there you're cutting off all room, all avenues of wanting to shift, wanting to be better, wanting to heal.
I agree. And I would say, so we talk about triggers initially. So, right, when we first started doing this, when I first started going through this, or actually, I wouldn't even say when I first started going through it, because I don't think I even recognized back then what triggers were. But it's like looking back to that time frame from where I'm at right now, my triggers, my reaction to my triggers were very much different than they are now. And it's because because it's like you're slowly picking away or you know, peeling the layers of an onion, really. You're slowly getting rid of these things. And that's why it's easier now. It wasn't easier for me then. If I was focused on it in this journey then, because I wasn't, I was just willy-nilly. Someone pissed me off, I'm slamming doors, slamming cabinets, motherfucker, whatever. Shit, birds are flying everywhere. I mean, really, it was everything you could possibly think of, and loudly, and my voice would be loud.
Yeah.
You know, I would get louder like that, but it's different now, because as you were describing it, you're more neutral. Like now we look at it and we're like, okay, why am I reacting this way in our head? Because it's a neutral thing. It's like you've got another, it's a wonderful thing, because you've got this different perspective, and you're like slowing, like, why did I do that? Why did I just react to that person because that's the way they're driving, or, you know, just why? And it's the different, it's because we're not looking at things as how it's being done to us. We're looking at how we're showing up. How are we in the world? How are we contributing? Because sometimes before, my contribution wasn't very nice. It wasn't. But it's just, I find it interesting looking back to then to now, how easy it is now. But initially it didn't feel that way. It felt like everything was a struggle. But once I started learning this stuff, even though I wasn't open to the possibilities of really thinking I really had to go work on myself or go fix myself, or, you know, that makes it sound like I was broken, but I wasn't. It was just changing my thoughts. It really, everything changed because I started becoming receptive. Even though I was resistant in some places, I had a desire within me that wanted to change. I knew what I wanted because I already done the other stuff enough to know what I wanted, that something had to be different than where I was at right then. So it created that desire. And this is how we got here. It wasn't, like you said, it's not something overnight. Depends on how much work you want to put into it, or how much you want to really slow down and pay attention. Move outside of town.
Yeah.
Get some
Get
time to
away.
yourself. Start noticing everything that triggers you. Go on the Facebook for 5 minutes, no more, and then
Yep.
be like, okay, thank you for all these wonderful gifts you guys just gave me.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. And there's just know that there's no way Bev and I could be having these conversations if we were still in the space of our woundedness.
No.
of our trauma and drama, we would be sitting here bashing people and judging people and blaming people, and we would not be able to have these conversations that we have if we were still very much wounded and our wounds oozing with infection. It just wouldn't happen. There's no way.
It's true. It's true. I find something kind of funny. I had a dream last week, and we've talked about, I've brought up like splinters, these emotions and stuff working its way through our system. Well, I had a dream that in my ring finger on my right side, but I had this black little dot right there, and it's like I pulled it out, and it turned out to be this super long. I mean, it was this little splinter thing, but it was like this super long thing. Like it was like too thin to be wires. It was weird, and so I'm like, that is just such a weird thing. To me, that's such a, like, what does that mean? So for me, I'll go look up, because I know about meridians, or I know about, pressure points or acupuncture, and I have information I've received on that stuff. So I thought, I'm gonna go look up Chinese medicine. What is the meaning of that finger? And it was removing grief and sadness.
Oh,
so
nice.
It was so crazy to me. It was crazy to me. But it's just, we get such wonderful information that comes to us, and when we're allowing, because I'm constantly in my head asking, like, if I'm feeling a certain way, and I'm kind of getting tired of feeling that same way, I'm like, God, my universal team, I need your guys' help, because I don't know what to do from here. And it's like, the more then I'm guided to certain things, to listen to certain things, to listen to us, or the information that we would put out there, as well as other people. And it's like, all this information comes forward, and it's like, it's such a relief. I feel like I'm in such a space of relief right now, which is wonderful.
And relief could just look like contentment.
Yes.
When I got to the space of being content, I was like, I thought I was on top of the world, because I had so much stress and drama every single day that I was awake, that I created in my own mind, the stories I was telling myself. And when I got to a place of contentment, that means I'm not really being a negative person, but I'm not really being a positive person either. I'm just being. Wow, what an amazing, I thought that was the biggest accomplishment ever. I mean, I would be up there with like getting a degree. Really, I don't care if it was a high school degree, it doesn't matter. It was like an accomplishment that I got to that space. And then I had to assess, all right, if this is what contentment feels like, I definitely know I don't want to go backwards, because that doesn't feel good. I already know that. And so now, what's the next step? Well, we want to be joy. I want to have more joy in my life. Okay, well, what steps do I need to do to get there? Well, first of all, could you just have more humor? Could you just be more lighthearted? Could you be more playful? Could you get out in nature more? Right? It was like, what are the things? What is the experiences? What can I do within myself to add joy to my life? And it wasn't that I needed to be the most joyous person in the world in that moment. I was in a space of contentment. So a very joyous life is like, to me at that time, was very far away still, but I had come this close. I got closer. And now that I've created this space of contentment, now I knew I could start adding the more uplifting or positive into my life, and start moving more into a joyous life. So I didn't go from negative Nilly to the most joyous person in the world. I mean, there were these steps that I had to take, because content, that when I was in that space of contentment, I didn't even know what to call it. I'm like, what is this? It took me a while to figure out contentment was the word, that this is what this meant to me. Not stressed out, but not in a happy place either. Like I was okay, right? I was okay. And it finally felt more a feeling of safety.
Gotcha.
And really,
oh, go ahead.
Really the safety was more not so much safe from other people. I was safe from my own stories because I wasn't telling them anymore, or not telling them as frequently as I was. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And that felt really amazing to be in that space.
It feels lighter. So to me, it feels lighter, like a weight's been lifted, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
if you want to go to contentment, it's like you don't have that same heaviness on you anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like maybe we can refer to contentment as an adjustment, a good neutral adjustment station. Like, we're going to go on to this state right here for a little bit, and then we'll worry about, or not worry about, then we'll focus on maybe how could it be better than this, or how can I have more joy in this, or how can I be more focused right now? It's funny because I've been like looking for different movies from other people, what stuff that's enlightening, because I watch a lot of stuff like that. Well, I watched Michael again the other day because I love that movie. It's just, to me, it's so awesome. But it's funny because he even said there, something about laughter would actually lead you to falling in love, or lead you, into that love space. So humor is like such an important bridge to everything.
Mm-hmm.
To everything. Just like singing, I was listening to someone else and they're talking about how you can clear energy just by singing, and it might be going, or even just a tone that you may start at a high tone and you drop all the way down to a lower tone, and then recognizing when you're doing the high, dropping all the way to the low, where you're getting hung up at. But it talks about clearing stuff out of your body. There's just different ways. There's so many different techniques that are out there right now. Laughing is the best one, I feel like. But singing can help you to start opening and breaking loose some of this stuck energy that you have in your body. And it doesn't just mean that it's at the throat area or the throat chakra area. It's like a full body thing, because as you go lower in your tone, you're going lower in your chakras, which are...
And the vibration. So it's adding the vibration from those tones. Yeah.
She even talked about if you're having a headache, really sitting at that high pitch for a few minutes and then going down, she says, you'll immediately relieve a headache. Immediately. I haven't tried to get back to you on that. But it's because they say it's just stuck energy. That's all it is. It's just stuck.
And so I want to just talk about that, because there are so many different techniques. And actually, I said this last week about emotional healing. I have such a deep belief in emotional healing that it's just a part of me that I know I can heal myself if I so choose to. And it would be the same with meditation or tapping, or the vibrational tones, tuning forks, Reiki, any modality that you choose. It's important, I feel, that you go into it with a belief, at least a belief, that it's going to help. And if you go in with a belief that it's going to help, then you are going to get some relief. The deeper the belief, I feel, the more longevity there is in the healing.
And it's like, learn as many modalities as you can. You talked about tapping. Well, one of the things I heard a few weeks ago, it's like, just tap on your sternum. So sometimes it's like, if you're in such a state, like it's almost like resetting yourself. And you're not doing the full tapping thing, but you're like tapping on the heart center. You're like getting your focus back onto the heart center. There's for me, it's like, learn as many modalities as possible. So like when you did tapping, I was neutral. So when I came to you for tapping, you were going to do a group, and we just happened to be, it was just us, which was perfect, because that's exactly what I needed. Things work out amazingly like that.
That's right,
but
they
it's
do.
like the tapping. Like, I had no idea. I didn't know what it was, because I didn't do any research on it beforehand. I didn't really know what I was going to expect from it. I just came in neutral. I didn't have any expectations, and then it blew my mind, because it's like bringing something up from freaking third grade that I was pissed off about a teacher and some other stuff. And it was amazing to me, because it's like it brought like the splinter or this emotion right to the surface almost immediately, like right to the surface. It blew my mind. So it's like I learn as many modalities as you can. Find it, because sometimes I'm in a space and I don't think about tapping my heart. Sometimes I'm in a space and I'm not, maybe my head's bothering me so bad, I'm focused on that I'm not going to pay attention that, hey, if I listen to a different tone, or if I start making maybe some humming from high to low or whatever, could make all the difference in the world. It could clear up that energy that's just stuck right now.
So you say that, and when I say, okay, if I have a headache and I deeply believe in the emotional healing, to me a headache represents I'm either overthinking or I'm having negative self-talk.
And I agree with that too.
And so that's my go-to, just like we talked about last week. My go-to, I already know that about myself. If I have a headache, I already immediately I know what steps to take to see what's going on in my head, basically, right? What
Yeah.
thoughts am I having, or what am I worried about, or what am I overthinking about, or what am I beating myself up about through my thoughts? And once I recognize that, like the headache's gone. Like
Okay.
within as soon as I acknowledge, oh, this is what I've been doing, or this is what how I've been using my thoughts, gone. I can't,
Yeah.
I've said this many times. I can't tell you the last time I took a Tylenol or an Excedrin or anything for a headache, because I already know. And I have such a deep belief that once I recognize what I'm using my mind for, um, in a negative sort of way, and shift that, I'm good. I might need to close my eyes for a little bit and give myself a little bit of rest and relief, but I'm good, right? And it would
Yeah.
be the same as the humming. You have a deep belief in the humming and the tones and the vibration, and you go to that, you get relief. Use the tool. Use the tool that you have the most belief in, is what I would say.
Well, because sometimes I just don't think we can be right into our head. To me, if someone comes into me and they're having neck problems and headache, they're not using their voice and they're stuck in their head. They're thinking too much. I totally understand what you're saying. They're not grounded. So it's like because if you're all up in here, you're not anywhere near the
Right.
earth, really. So, but I understand what you're saying. I do, but that's just another modality. That's just another, like for me, it's like I go through all of them, because sometimes I'm not in a space to do that. Sometimes I'm not in a space to focus on the head. Maybe my head's bothering me too much that I can't even focus into that space. So to me, it's like finding whatever works for you, really exploring everything. And because some things work faster than others, it seems like. And sometimes we're not ready to face the stuff that's going on in the head, and that's okay.
And if you
But
need
it
to
just
take
shows
that,
where you graduated to.
yeah, if you need to take that over the counter pill, then take it to get the relief. But no, I will preach this probably till the day I die. Know that there is still work to be done.
Oh yeah.
There is some healing of emotional work that is going on, and you can put it aside for a minute. Minute could be a day, a week, a month, a year. It's still there, and it's still going to surface in some way. And so it's allowing yourself to take the time to process, journal about what you have suppressed within you from your history, from your stories.
Yep. The Band-Aid's not going to help forever.
No, no, I have to say no.
Yeah, it won't. It won't. I know. I mean, from what my experiences, it won't help. It's easy to go down that path or whatever. It's easy to throw that Band-Aid on, but I don't know if it's easier. I think it's just the way we've learned. I wouldn't say it's easier. It's just the habits. It's society telling you that take a pill. It's people around you. Gosh, I remember my mom always was saying, "Did you take something? Did you take something for your headache, or you do this?" So it just becomes a subconscious thing. It's just an automatic thing, but it doesn't have to be. And you've gotten to the point where you go right to the source.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes for me, I can't get right there. Sometimes it might be I'm in meditation and I'm just focusing on the area. So it's like there's just a million different ways we can get to that place, and it's all healing. So it's awesome.
And I would say that healing comes from a space of love.
Yes.
So do use the modalities that feel good. We say that every week, and everything that we talk about, use the modalities that feel good to you. So go back to your thread thing. What did you, if you don't mind sharing, what did you process with that?
There was a lot of grief and stuff and sadness from the losing of Jim and stuff like that. And I would say that most of it was my grief, maybe on how things happen. But it's so easy for me. It's so easy to when someone passes, no matter how the situation was before, you see nothing but the good stuff about that person. And then I've seen so much ugly stuff about myself. And it's like, I'm doing, since I've done that, like removing that the emotions of everything, like, and it was deep. It almost seemed like it was so long that it was almost up into my heart, which would be the opposite side of the body, but that's how far it went. And that's how this long the string was. It was so crazy to me. And it wasn't just a string, it was fibrous or whatever. It was just the weirdest thing that I had witnessed. But it was a lot of sadness and stuff. It was like pulling that out. And maybe it's not even just this lifetime. Maybe it's from experiences from before, or parallels, or whatever you want, however you want to look at it. It seemed like it was so much more. And it was a letting go of a lot of, I mean, it just felt like, it just felt like something was just taken out, like a block was removed, I guess is the way. And so now when I recognize things in myself that, you know, I see maybe how I have been, not like maybe I've been, maybe I was manipulative. Maybe I was a bully sometimes. Maybe I was ugly sometimes. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yes, I was. It was never one person. It was never one-sided, but it's looking at it now. And now I'm like, thank you, Jim. Thank you, Mom. Because it wasn't because they got to be that person that was with me during this training, this learning. So it's just because now I can actually see it that way now, but it feels totally different. So I don't know what got extracted, but I mean, when I looked up the sadness and the grief and stuff like that, I was like, okay, because there were some days that were just so heavy.
Mm-hmm. What comes to me, because you kept saying a string, but it was more fibrous. What do we have? A string of events.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a string of events to pull out, release, look at differently, thank the teachers, right? The mom, the husband, the kids, the family members, the friends, the coworkers, they're all teachers. And so we thank them for being a part of an event, or playing their part in an event in our life that helps us move in a different direction.
You know, now that we're talking about the grief stuff, it's interesting. I was talking to someone last week and I said, oh, my mom came through. And then I said, well, I miss her. And I said, well, but I don't miss her, which kind of sounds, if you think about it, in everybody's thoughts, the way they think these days, or the way they have thought in the old days, you have to grieve a certain way, or you have to feel a certain way. I don't miss her because I know she's around me still. You know, it's such a different thing. Because then I was like, well, I said, it may sound kind of strange coming from me, but I don't miss her. I don't miss her. I love her. I know that she's still around me, so I just found it really interesting to even have that perspective. It was like, wow, because then it's like I pulled back almost immediately as soon as I said that. I'm like, wait a minute, but no, in honesty, I don't miss her in all those ways. I get her with me in so many different new ways. She's around me. Like the other day, I'm over taking care of the cats, and all of a sudden I feel like I wanted to call my mom. I'm like, oh, my mom's with me right now. So it wasn't but if I had been in a different space, I'd been like, oh God, I miss my mom. But in that space, I was like, oh, she's here with me right now. And that's only because I've been lighter. Like we talked about this so many times, like our energy is it's very important. We can't be in a grieving, sad, low vibrational space all the time and expect to be in this high place, because they're not down there. They're not in that space. They're not in that energy. They're in a higher energy. They're in the feel good place. Even if it's just the contentment, you're still more open to receiving information or recognizing how much they are around us. So it kind of caught me off, because society, and that's been one thing even with going through the grieving of Jim, it's like people have an ideal how you're supposed to grieve. Oh my God, she lost her husband and she's in a relationship, or whatever the situation is. It's people have an ideal of how you're supposed to do things, and it's like there is no right or wrong way. And that's where judgment, and I have judged in my life, but it's to step back and acknowledge that I'm not in that space anymore, and it's all right if someone else is, because it's not about me. If someone's judging me about my decisions right now, it's not about me. That's about them, because that's emotionally hitting some triggers for their wounds that they have. but I'm in a space where I can, I understand that. It makes sense to me now.
I've been, and I've shared this before, that when somebody, even with you, so I'll just take our interactions, for example. Not once did I tell you after Jim passed, not once did I say I was sorry. Not once, because I wasn't. I was like, oh my gosh, I find the beauty and the excitement in it. And um and I'm like, wow, look how he is able to release his pain and struggle from this physical body. Look how he showed up as a teacher for you. Look at how much healing you get to do because of this experience, right? These were our conversations through that whole thing. And personally, when somebody transitions, I'll never, and I will say this on the holiest book of all, I will never tell somebody I'm sorry for your loss, ever, because they did not lose anything. They've gained so much. Not only person transitioning have they gained so much, but the person who is still in the physical body, they have gained so much as well, if they choose to see it that way. And so it's the assumption. So if I, people around me, if I were to have a dear friend or family member transition from the physical body, people assume, because it is our programming, that I am going to be very sad and very in that low vibrational grieving process, right? And I just had that happen. I just had a friend transition from physical body, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful and it's so wonderful, and I'm so thankful that I had this time with him, and being able to be here through this process with him. And I have more access to him now that he's in spirit, because I can call upon his energy to help me. And like, I have all these wonderful things that I experienced from this whole situation with this family. And it was such a beautiful thing. And I was so excited about it. I shared my excitement with his daughter. Like, I'm like, this is so exciting to me. And I'm like, isn't this fucking cool? This is so cool, right? Everything that happened, everything we experienced together. And she had her moments of crying and feeling the anger. And I'm like, feel it now, do it now. He's still here. Feel that and cry and do it. And then I'm like, now just know he is going into a spirit. He's transitioning from this physical body. There's no limitations. There's no more struggle. There's no more pain. There's no more guilt and shame. I'm like, this is so exciting for him. And he has this team of people on the other side, this family, spiritual family, that is ready and willing to greet him and help him get there. And I'm like, it's such a beautiful thing. And I said, you're going to have more access to him now than ever before, and more access to his love more than you ever have before. And so coaching her through that, then now when I'm with his wife and I see people, actually when they come and see her in person, and how low, like the whole room, like the energy just goes, whoo, goodness, I'm so sorry for your loss. And it's just so heavy. And I'm like, I don't like the feeling of that. I really don't. I'm just like, he's here with us still. He's still with her. He's still watching over her. He's still going to express his love for her in ways if she can receive it, right? And she has said, the wife, I mean, she's elderly, and she's mentioned things like, I would say, how could your day be better? And she would be like, well, if my husband was here. And I said, I understand that. And he is. And we're going to honor that. We're going to honor that he is still here with us. And I say it with a smile, and I say it with conviction. And she says, oh, okay. She's still learning to receive me and my words and my energy. And she goes, oh, okay. And then she like perks up a little bit. So it's in how we are interacting with those that I had a lady tell me one time, she said, she said the worst thing that bothered her was, like, let's say for instance, I'm bubbly and I'm having a good day and I'm laughing, and then I come to you, Bev, and I go, how are you doing? Right? And I just completely dropped that energy. She's like, I don't like that. I don't like it when people do that to me. I said, I get that. I totally understood what she said, because I don't like the way it feels.
It's almost like I can envision someone like scooping up dirt and burying you. You know what I mean? Because it feels like a heavy sensation. Because I've experienced it too, from the side of someone saying I'm sorry versus someone saying, oh my God, he was such a wonderful person, or he was this. It's a totally different feeling, and I totally agree with that. And being receptive. So you talked about being receptive. It's up to us after someone passes to be receptive to the information that's coming through and to acknowledge it, to recognize it. So and it kind of came to me while we were talking before I had that dream about that being removed from my finger. I have a client that's a really close friend of mine, and we were talking, and in that I was giving her massage, and it hit my mind. I was like, Jim, are you here with me right now? And then I'm giving her the massage, and then she asked me a question, and it's like, she said I answered it kind of heavy, and she said, you got to remember where you were. She started reminding me of all the things that were going on before, how unhappy that I was and how unhappy that he was at that time too. And there was a lot of unhappiness. And it was like, she was reminding me of all the things that we had talked about. And it was like him speaking through her. And I didn't recognize it until after she left, And I was like, oh my God, this just happened. And now I'm recognizing, because it's a little bit week later, that it was right after that I ended up having that dream that splinter fibrous thing was taken out of my finger. So it's interesting. It's interesting because we are receiving information all the freaking time. And that was his way of being able to speak through someone that was receptive, that was more neutral, like we've been. And like I always tell everyone, we can all do it. We can all bring forward the information. We just got to be in tune to it. And it's not even something that you have to do when you're just in a neutral space, or you're in a decent, whether it's just, like you just talked about, whether we're in that space or not, that state, we're so receptive, and each person can pass on information that's in your environment. So I was able to hear it from her, and it was like since then I even would say that I have felt a relief. It was like taking some of the blame off, because I was really, like you said, we get so much in our head, and I was really burying myself. And then it takes me, because that same evening, which kind of gives me goosebumps, I sent me the message that you just watched Ed Milet with John Edwards.
Yep.
And it's like I'm listening to that on the way home, and it's like this is the synchronicity of all the stuff that's going on right now. That was all these little miracles that happen all around us that we don't pay attention to, but I'm aware of. I'm paying attention to it. And the one thing that, because Jim was by himself when he passed, and that's been one of the kids' concerns, and I shared it to the kids, whether they choose to listen to it or not is whenever they're ready to hear it, that's up to them. But it was saying, he said, we never die alone. Nobody ever dies alone. It's like, I know that, but it was nice to hear it. It was nice to hear it from someone else, because I know that my mom was there with him. He loved my mom so much that it's like, I know that she was there. My brother was there too. So it's just crazy. And it's a knowing. So when we talk about a knowing is like so matter of fact. It doesn't matter what anybody else says. It doesn't matter, because you know so deep within yourself, in your soul, the truth. Nobody else's opinion, nothing else can shift it or anything. A knowing is a knowing. I know, like I know, like I know.
Like I know. And that knowing is moving you into your truth. And
yes.
When that happens, now you start questioning what you've been doing, or what people have been telling you to do, or been telling you to how to think, how to behave, what to say. And then something in you, and you just, it's like similar to what Bev was saying, like you get goosebumps, like there's something in you that just says, this is off. This doesn't feel right. Something doesn't seem right, right? Whatever verbiage comes to you. And then it's a time that will open up a door for you to start getting different information that will move you more into your truth.
So I'm not sure what you were saying about the goosebumps, because for goosebumps for me is always confirmation.
Yep.
Okay.
That's the same for me. When I'm speaking and I get goosebumps, or I'm speaking to somebody and they like, oh, you've done it to me several times. Oh, I just got goosebumps. Immediately my next words are, I'm speaking truth. I will say it out loud. I'm speaking the truth, because that is indication that's the truth. And I'm not, and yeah, I'm speaking from my truth, but if you're getting the goosebumps, it's your truth as well. And
exactly.
How you receive it and what you do with it is your business. I know what it is for me.
Exactly. Because I've been in conversations and I've got goosebumps from someone saying something like that. I'm like, that, I know that to be truth. I know that to be truth. It doesn't mean that everybody else knows it to be truth. It's so funny because what catches my eye lately, or in the last maybe month or so, is living your truth, right? How to be yourself by living your truth. And it's like, I kept saying, what the fuck does that mean? What does living your truth mean? But it's like, which is good that I got to that point where I asked the question, that I got to that feeling of like, what the hell, seriously? Because there's more and more information that's flowing to me. You know, I was noticing I read cards a little bit different than somebody else, right? So I wanted to learn how to read. When I say read cards, tarot cards or oracle cards. I also have noticed that I'm a symbolism kind of person. Someone else might want to read the book or whatever, and it's like, no, I hardly ever even look at the book anymore. I'm looking at the symbol, what caught my eye. And I realized this weekend, there's a lot of things I've realized this weekend. Holy crap.
What a great weekend.
I know. But it's like all these things have been leading up. You know, we want to gain so much information and we want to learn something so fast. But the thing is, I started learning about numbers. So numbers were now something for me to pay attention to. That was something to look at. That was a sign. Then I started paying attention to symbolism as far as water and air and all this other stuff. Started paying attention to that stuff. Then you start paying attention. You know, there was just so many things that over my life in the last couple of years has been leading up to me having a different take or a different feel for my cards. Because initially I was the person that was reading the book all the time. Especially if I felt like I was going to do something wrong and I had someone across from me be like, oh, I'm reading this page, reading this page. And now it's like, I'll do the reading and then I'll look back at the cards, because I would look back at my book afterwards after I'd done a reading for somebody, which I haven't done very often, but I think that's going to shift. I would start looking at the book and it's like, it was pretty much going along with what I was already saying. So the symbolisms we experience symbolism all the time, and that's also with spirit, right? So John Edward was talking about how you receive symbols. Like, what do you think about when you think about a birthday? He said birthday cake, the person he was talking to, and that's typically what I would see too. I would see a birthday cake with candles on it lit, and he says, well, I see a rose. So I mean, he would start with this white rose because that's what they showed him, right? So we have been, whenever you have a desire to learn something, we're learning all the time. In this world right now, this freaking classroom that we're in, we're learning all the time. It's whatever we want. So it's like, that to me is like so super exciting, because it's been happening all along. Like, I've been wanting all this symbolism and to learn how to do this stuff. And it's like, sometimes you might get frustrated and think, oh, I'm going backwards and I'm not getting this information. No, mother, you've been learning this whole freaking time. You've been doing symbols this whole time, like all this knowledge. Every time you see 1111, you look it up and you see what it resonates with you with that number. Every time you see something, and that's because that's the way they can communicate with you. Because my freaking face is itching. I think it's because of the heaters on. But he was talking about the symbolisms. I don't remember what I was going to say about something else on it. I don't know. It's been a wonderful place, you know, because we all want to do these things and have this communication, but it's a new language. Oh, he was talking about, why do you think he says, because someone was saying, well, why, it'd be nice if someone would just tell you like, hey, I'm Joe. I died of a heart attack.
Right.
I missed my wife dearly, or whatever the heck it was. And he says, okay. He says, well, how does a deaf person communicate?
Right.
And he's like, through sign language. So through signs, and it's symbolisms. Not to say that I've never, because I do hear voices. I mean, I do hear stuff. I don't know if I would specifically say it's from my loved ones that have passed, because I don't know that I haven't really actually heard them talking to me. You receive it so differently. It's not like that, like a voice, but I do hear voices and stuff. No, I'm not schizophrenic or anything else, at least not that I'm aware of. I made it this far.
Great.
But yeah, a little bit on the cray. Well, I could probably qualify for that in some aspect.
Yeah, me too.
But he says, and that's what he was saying. He says they communicate through sign language, and he says, well, and then he says, well, why don't they talk? And he says, because they can't. I mean, sometimes if they were born that way, they don't have that way of knowing how to communicate that way or to use their vocal tones or anything. They don't have any of that stuff. So it's like they can't. So that's the same thing as the other side. They're not in a human body anymore. I say the other side because it's easier to understand the separation, I guess, when there is no separation. So maybe it's to start talking about that differently without separation. When you're in spirit, they don't have a physical body. They don't have a way to use their vocal tones or anything. They have ways of describing things in different ways. It's a whole new language, which you've talked about a long time ago. It's like learning a new language, and it is.
If we listen.
If we listen.
And acknowledge.
Yeah, you got to be aware, really.
And it comes in so many ways, so many different ways, millions of different ways.
All day.
And the only reason why we miss them is because we're in our head and we're worried about the future, shaming ourselves about the past, telling our stories, wrapped up in drama, trauma, emotions, and we're not right here, right now to receive. It's the only reason why we miss those signs.
Yeah. At least I know I've been present a few times because I got the signs. I mean, that's like reassurance. You got the signs. You were present. I was present like 5 or 6 times recently. So, I mean, I was present more often than that, but
they're like, okay, so we've improved. She got 5 of our signs out of the 10,000 that we sent instead of just getting 1 sign. Woo, we got to celebrate that.
So awesome. So awesome.
I love it. That's so good. So good. So the interview we're talking about is an interview by Ed Milet, who is a multimillionaire business leader, and he interviews psychic medium John Edwards. It is on YouTube. It's a really good video to watch, especially if you are in that grieving space. And I love John Edwards anyways. I think he's amazing. I love that show came out so many years ago, and it was so exciting. Opened the doors for people understanding more about psychic mediums and intuition and all that. And it's been an amazing journey. And of course, there are so many other people too who have contributed to that space. But intuition is huge. It became huge last year because of the social media that you got to watch Social Dilemma on Netflix. It's a documentary about how social media is a means of control.
Oh, yeah.
And it will bring more light to you. Let me tell you this. Multi-millionaire business leaders do not consume social media. Almost every one of them will say, I do not look at social media. They have a team of people who do their posts, a team of people who reviews the comments and questions, but the people themselves, the business leaders, the multimillionaire billionaires, they're not sitting there reading, scrolling, mindlessly scrolling. They don't spend time. If it is, like you said, 5 minutes max.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah. And then when I watched Netflix, social media, what did I say it was? Social Dilemma. It's called Social Dilemma. Wow. It's going to open your eyes to a lot, and it's going to be like, what? It was good. It's good. So it's things like that, always learning and understanding and knowing how we operate. Social media is strictly based on psychology. It's all
Definitely.
psychological. And this is why it's so important to understand yourself and be in a space to learn about yourself. How am I operating? Why is this triggering me? Why am I consuming this information? Why am I giving my attention to this? Why am I getting triggered by that? Why is this person, how come I don't feel good around them? So going back to intuition, your intuition will be your guidance as to helping you identify what is your truth. And the truth for me is not always the same as for Bev. And this is where we can be different. We can have different views. I can say emotional healing is the way to go, and that's going to heal your body. And Bev's going to say the vibration of tones is going to heal your body. And that's okay. They're both modalities. We both see truth in that. I believe in one, she believes in the other, but we can still have a conversation. We can still be open about it. We can still have differences and still show up every week and share this information with you. So it's getting back to allowing people to have differences. Like, we are not all meant to think and act the same. That would make this world very boring. But just know what feels good and what doesn't feel good. And that's through your own internal guidance, those goosebumps. And no, I don't always get the goosebumps. However, my body will tell me. My body tells me this doesn't feel good. That person's energy is not a good space for you to be in. I will not, if somebody doesn't feel good to me, if vibrationally, they will stay at a distance by my standards. Like, I keep my distance from them, even if I have to be in the same space with them for different reasons. There will be space between us, because it's not in my best interest for me and my body and my vibration to be close to them and get to know them and spend time with them. And that's not based on me judging them. It's based on my internal guidance is saying that it's not okay for me to invite them into my energy. If that makes sense. So your intuitive guidance, definitely be the thing to start developing and getting to know yourself and learning how to read that within yourself. So huge right now. It's
It
huge.
really is. And think about it like it's a muscle, because the more you use it, the louder it gets, the more it's just right there. And and that's what I've been doing since the client told me probably 3 weeks ago, I want to, for like the next week, how about you just only listen to your intuition? And it's like, that's made such a huge difference. So that's what I'm doing.
Yep.
And it really is. And it's like, I'm open to all, and I know that the emotional healing is part of all of it. All of it everything leads you to the same result, because stuff still comes to the surface, just like you did with the tapping, just like that. And I know that was a stepping stone to something else, but it's something that sometimes when you're like, I just don't even know, maybe you're looking too hard at something like that. Sometimes it just like brings it right out. It's just right there. And I don't do it all the time, but it's one of those things that I also know that it helps to redirect. So sometimes it's just, however you can get yourself right off the ground and kind of lift yourself up a bit is good. Because if you're depressed, it's hard to get right into this. You're like in, I guess this is my perspective. So if I'm depressed, I'm in victim mode, right? I mean, would we consider that like a victim mode?
Yep.
Then you can't, I couldn't get from the ground to my head that fast, or out of my head down that fast. So it's like, it had to be a process. So for me, it almost like be grasping at whatever I can get a hold of that's going to shift me. Because sometimes, unless we spoke, and you'd be like, well, Bev, do this. But a lot of times for me, I'll get caught in myself. So I don't discuss a lot of stuff. It's like an internal process. But me doing that stuff has helped lead me more into my intuition, more to listening to myself, and more to my guidance and stuff too. And sometimes my guidance to me might be like calling me. Do I always listen to it? No, but I am now. I am now.
And I say have a toolbox. Like, as a coach, I have to have a toolbox of many different techniques, because what works for me may not work for Bev, and what works for Bev may not work for Sally over here, or Betty, or Joe, or right. So it's, even as a coach, I have to be open, and I say have to be, because people are all in different spaces, and to reach into my little toolbox and say, okay, I feel like this is the tool, this is the technique that's going to help you in this moment. And then it might be a gradual, well, use tapping, we're going to use tapping for now, and we're going to do this, and where it's going to be then a graduation process. Like, very seldom do I do tapping, very seldom,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I know my body's talking to me, something's out of whack. What is it emotionally? Do the work, bam, right? Done. And
Yeah.
it could be journaling, just write down how you're feeling. It could be punching a pillow and yelling and screaming to get the anger out of your body, right? There's so many different techniques available to us, and it is to be open to all of them. Don't discount any of it. Don't discount any of it. And so,
Oh no.
you just be open. Like, okay, so I had a conversation with my with a friend last night, and she's young, she's in her 20s, early 20s, and she's like, I'm reading this book by Brian Weiss, and I'm letting her share with me her perspective, and she goes, it's interesting, but I'm not sure. Well, Brian Weiss is the hypnotherapist who brought forth like past life regressions. He's like a forefather, founding father of diving into learning about people and past lives. And so she's sharing with me her perspective. And inside, man, I'm just all giddy and I'm excited, and I just want to jump out of my chair, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I love Brian Weiss, right? And so then I start talking and telling her stories and sharing information. I'm like, read this book, read this book, read this book. These people have all studied this. And I talked about Edgar Cayce. And so it was like, she was just open to hearing it, even though she's still on the fence. Like, I'm not sure about, I'm like, you know what? Keep reading. Here, read this book, Memories of Heaven by Wayne Dyer. Here, read this book by Michael Newton, Lives in Between Lives, right? I'm just telling her all these things. And, but she is being curious. That's a key word. Be curious about different healing modalities, healing techniques. Don't shut them off. Be curious, because it may not be for you, but it could be for somebody else. And because you have that knowledge, that information, you can pass that along to somebody else.
Well, and your intuition, like when you were saying, a client comes to you, and you might say that maybe they're ready for tapping or whatever. It's because you're listening to your intuition.
Yep.
It's so interesting, because it's like, I remember reading books, and it talked about how they would kind of tie into someone else's, I don't know, they would call it so many different things, into their energy, into their Akashic records, or, I mean, all this other stuff. But really, it's just you paying attention to your intuition, because you've got your soul and their soul, and they communicate. They're bringing forward the information, like, hey, she needs to hear this right here, but she's not ready to, she won't listen to me right now. So it's going to come through you. It's awesome. And it's, sometimes people don't follow through right away. And it's, you're planting the seeds. You're planting the seeds so that they hear it 3 times or 7 times or whatever. We talked about like the healing, like we use our book all the time, the body secret language of the body. Is that what it's called?
The secret language of your body.
Oh yeah.
I
was kind of have it right in front of me. Yeah. But I mean, that's an awesome book. And that's an emotional healing that you talked about too. So I refer to that, a lot of the stuff, a lot. I mean, I really do. But sometimes I find, like you said, sometimes even I'm my client for myself, and I dip to different areas. And it's like, maybe you can only hear a certain way or at a certain time. Like I haven't even been listening to music that had tones. I've only been listening to like singing bowls and chimes and all that kind of stuff lately, for probably the last few weeks. And it's like today I was like missing my music, so I turned on some of my uplifting music to listen to sing, to clear out the body, which felt good, because you catch yourself. I think it's just another way of kind of checking yourself where you're at when you're not paying attention to yourself. before something turns into the headache or the back pain or whatever.
I think we need to
It's
leave
all
it here.
fun.
Yeah,
We need what?
we need to leave it here and say thank you so much for joining us with Tea Time with Amie and Bev, and giving and sharing your time and energy, taking the time to listen. And as always, we just hope that what we bring forth will be beneficial in your journey of your life. And please give us some comments, questions, and or share us with some of your friends and family, somebody you know could hear these words and that would help them make the shift, because they're not listening to you. They got to hear from somebody else.
It's true.
Right?
Yes.
It's just like your damn kids. They don't listen to the parents, but go next door and they listen to the neighbor. And you're just like, what? I've been telling this to them for years and they're not listening to me. When they hear it from somebody else, it's a confirmation that what you've been telling them is truth, and then they'll start listening more. So just be patient, have patience. It's all good. We're all here learning and growing.
That's right. That's right.
All right, my friends, thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.
Have a magical week.